Hello, my name is Chris and I'm a U-Haul hitch professional. Installing a hitch on your Tesla Model Y can lead to some amazing adventures, such as biking, camping, or road trips to your favorite destination. You can even tow a U-Haul trailer just about anywhere in North America. Now let's take a look at how I completed this install. You will need the following tools or supplies to complete this installation. Let's begin this installation by opening the tailgate and removing our floorboard. You can now remove the rear scuff panel by gently lifting up. You can now gently remove the floor liners. They will also just pop off. You can now remove 4 push rivets from the cargo box liner. There is one on either side of the box and 2 at the rear of the vehicle. You can now remove the cargo box liner. Remove these 2 cargo inserts by gently pulling them up. Now remove the final push rivet holding back the side trim. There is one on either side. Gently pull the trim away from the vehicle. There will be a tab here holding the lower trim to the upper trim. Hold the upper trim so you can pull away the lower trim. You can now remove 2 8mm fasteners from behind the taillight. You can now remove the taillight electrical adapter using a small flathead screwdriver. Now repeat for the passenger side taillight, but the red tab will be facing away from you so you cannot see it. You can now remove the trunk stops from the taillights. Use a trim panel tool to pry them loose. We're now ready to remove our taillights. Occasionally this can be tricky and require some wiggling or some movement. So we're going to take our blue masking tape and protect all the body lines near the taillight to prevent any damage. Pull the tape taut so you can slide it between the vehicle's bumper fascia and the taillight. You can now remove the taillight by gently pulling it rearward. If you use a trim panel tool, it can be a good idea to apply some electrical tape to the tool as well. Underneath each taillight is one 10mm fastener that you will need to remove. You can now remove 13 fasteners from your underbody panel. 7 will be 10mm and 6 will be push rivets you can use a flathead screwdriver to remove. You will notice that the underbody panel has 2 different size 10mm bolts. One has a flat washer, the other is a flange bolt. We need to take notice of where they come from so we return them to the same places. With all the fascia fasteners removed, we're now ready to remove it from the vehicle, but first we're going to protect all our body lines with masking tape to prevent any scratches from the undersides of any of these clips. We can now remove our fender trims to expose final hidden fasteners so we can remove the fascia. This should be more than sufficient. Here is our 8mm fastener. We're now ready to remove the fascia from the vehicle. This may be a good time for you to grab a second set of hands or a bumper stand or sawhorses if you have them. As you can see, our fascia was not connected back to the vehicle. If it is, you will find that connection right here on your vehicle. We can now remove 4 fasteners holding the bumper sensor in place. You can remove these with a 10mm socket. We're now ready to remove the factory bumper beam and the plates. We are going to retain the factory bumper beam in this installation, so I find it easier to take the beam off the plates while they're on the vehicle and then remove the plates, so we're not doing this awkwardly on the ground. Use a 15mm socket and an extension. Now with those 6 nuts removed, we can remove the 6 holding the factory plate, and we will find that there's 1 hidden bolt holding this to the plates, and that's the only awkward bolt to remove on the ground. You can now remove the beam and the brackets. You can now remove the hidden 13mm bolt. We're now ready to affix the factory bumper beam to our new EcoHitch. I'm gonna go ahead and use this U-Haul exclusive hitch jack. If you do not have one, we recommend that you grab a second set of hands to make this a little easier. Be sure to align the 3 mounting holes to the 3 welded on threaded bolts. Use this M8 bolt, flat washer, and spacer as your new hidden bumper beam bolt. Place the flat washer onto the bolt, and we will then tape the spacer into position. Now thread the M8 bolt through the hitch, through the spacer, and into the vehicle's bumper beam. You can now torque this bolt to the manufacturer's specifications. I will link it in the description below. We now have 6 nylon fender washers we're gonna place. We're going to put 2 on the lower outside stud and 1 on the inside, and then repeat on the opposite side. This top bolt does not get a nylon washer. You can now raise the hitch and factory bumper beam back onto the vehicle. We can now reaffix all our factory hardware. We're now ready to tighten and torque the hardware to the manufacturer specifications that I will link in the description below. We're gonna use the same 15mm socket and an extension to get access. We can now replace the electrical sensor bracket. If you plan to wire your Tesla Model Y, you may or may not find that you have an active power wire here under the bumper. If, like we have an active power wire, you do, this would be a good time to do your wiring installation. So I'm gonna go ahead and link that video as well in the description below, so we could do that before continuing forward with the fascia. We're now ready to apply the trim covers handle on the outside. We're gonna go ahead and use a flathead screwdriver to help remove this from the inside since we have the fascia off. Just simply depress down on the tab and push it out. The directions are calling out for the removal of all the raised tabs on this trim cover. However, I have found it easy enough to remove. My customer would like them to stay in place. If you prefer, move forward with assembling the brackets and see how easy or not easy this is to remove. If it's easy enough to remove, go ahead and leave all these on. We want to make sure not to make our bracket too low or too high. We want it to magnetize inside the hitch. So for this reason, we're going to come back and do this after the fascia is back on the vehicle to make sure everything lines up perfectly. We're now ready to return the fascia to the vehicle. Remember that if you had an electrical harness to disconnect, you will need to reconnect it now. Make sure your taillight cavities are lined up and press all the clips into place. You can reinstall all the fasteners. You can now return the single fastener behind the wheel trim and replace the wheel trim. You can now reinstall your taillights. You can now return the side trim by gently depressing the clips. And by reinserting the push rivet. You can now replace the cargo box trim and replace the 4 push rivets. Replace the floor support trim. We're now ready to return our rear threshold. You can now return your 2 floor pieces. With our fascia returned to the vehicle, we can now assemble the handle for the trim cover to keep it on the vehicle. Pass the bolt through the magnet without the washer and then thread it into the bracket. Now place on the flat washer and the locking nut. And we'll tighten this down with a Phillips head and 3/8 wrench. Now place the bracket and magnet in the receiver and get it centered so we can line the trim cover up to it. I have the trim cover and bracket lined up, and we're going to pull it out so we can see our window to drill a hole. You can use a marking device to mark out the area. We can now drill out the holes using a 1/4 inch drill bit. Make sure we keep our hands clear. Use the remaining number 10 hardware to affix the outer handle and the inner bracket. Pass the number 10 bolt through the outer handle, place on a plastic spacer, pass it through the trim cover, through the rear bracket, and then place on a flat washer and the locking nut. Repeat for the remaining hardware. Use the provided Allen key and an 11mm socket to secure this hardware. Now that our hitch is installed, we've pulled the vehicle onto level ground to show you some important measurements. This is a 2-inch hitch receiver. From the pinhole to the end of the bumper is 5 inches. From the ground to the top of the inside of the receiver is 14 inches. These measurements will help you determine the necessary length, rise, or drop of your hitch accessories like a ball mount, bike rack, ski carrier, or cargo carrier. If you have any questions about the products seen in this video, or if you'd like to schedule an installation with your local U-Haul hitch professional, please visit us online at uhaulhitches.com. You can also download the U-Haul app using the link in the description for even more ways to manage your hitch and towing needs.